Hello and welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. This is episode 353. I'm Rabonzo. This is my podcast. How are you? Where are you? What are you wearing? All right, let's get right into this today. If you've ever wondered what's going through an A&R executive's head when you listen to your music, what they're really evaluating, what would move them, what wouldn't, today's conversation is going to give you a clearer answer than most of us will ever get. My guest is Pete Ganbarg. Pete is a two-time Grammy-winning record producer and A&R executive. He spent nearly 16 years at Atlantic Records, the last 6 as president of A&R, where his work touched records most music fans would recognize. Santana's Supernatural, the Hamilton Cast album, 21 Pilots, and many others. He now runs Pure Tone Music, where his publishing credits include Miley Cyrus's Flowers and Alex Warren's Ordinary. He sits on the board of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and he teaches at Berklee, NYU, Wesleyan, and the University of New Haven. But here's what made me want to have him on the show. Pete has spent 35 years looking at artists from the inside of the major label system, the place most independent artists will never get a clear view of. And he's also spent the last several years teaching college students, hosting his own podcast called Rock and Roll High School, and watching the music industry change underneath him. That combination, an insider who is actively trying to translate what he knows to a new generation, is rare. I listened to an episode of Rock and Roll High School featuring John Anderson of Yes, by the way. Really great. I'll be listening to more episodes soon. But in our conversation, Pete shares what being all in actually looks like for an artist in 2026. He talks about why a label is best understood as a megaphone or an army for your art, not a savior of it. He tells me what he tells his students about the hard math of who makes it and who doesn't. And he gives me one principle he'd want every independent artist to act on this week, which surprised me a bit, because it wasn't a strategic or tactical thing. It was something more fundamental. Our conversation went really fast. Pete is a succinct guy, for which I'm always thankful. In fact, we went through all of my questions so quickly I was a little worried, but I think it came out all right. Pete drives home a lot of practical advice from experience that many of you will appreciate. You'll probably even learn a thing or two. Here's me speaking to Pete Ganbarg. Somehow I missed that you produce the Rock and Roll High School podcast, and it looks like you guys have done some great interviews, and I can't wait to check it out. I'm curious, having not heard it yet, what's the angle of your interviews?
I started, my background is as an A&R person, and I've done A&R for 35 years. For the last 16 years, I ran the A&R department at Atlantic Records, and I realized as I was hiring new A&Rs for the future, and the younger they got, the less they knew about the history of contemporary music. So I started teaching them, and one thing led to another. During the pandemic, we started doing it online for the entire global Warner Music staff, and figured if we were doing it on Zoom, with these interviews of these legendary figures, I could just hit record and repurpose it for a podcast. So we basically say that it's the history of contemporary music as told by the people who helped create it in their own words. So we started by educating our staff, and now it's become 5 seasons in. We're closing in on our 100th episode, and it's a little bit of everybody, from great artists to great songwriters to great producers to people behind the scenes, anyone who has played a part in the history of contemporary music.
Cool. Well, that makes a lot of sense based on your background and kind of what I expected, but I'm even looking even more forward to hearing it. What do artists consistently overestimate about their own career readiness, and what do they underestimate?
I think when we're recording this now in, close to the middle of 2026, I think now, once you decide you want to be an artist, if you want to go for the brass ring and you want to be the biggest artist in the world, not everybody wants to and not everybody has to be, and there's no correct answer. But if you do, you have to be in 24/7, which means that if you're not writing and recording, you're touring. If you're not touring, you're posting. And If you're not, you're going to be left behind because it's an information culture and climate, and those who don't get left behind. It's unfortunate, but that's the rules of engagement right now.
Well, major label, and by all means, correct me or I might misstate things or fact check me. I've spoken to other label folks, if you will, but I'm still always learning a lot. But a major label surrounds an artist with a team of like A&R, marketing, radio, publicity. An independent artist often has to be the team, especially if you're in the realm of my listenership. Which of those functions matter most and which can be deferred?
I think what you need if you're going to be an artist, you need to have a team around you who's going to help amplify your art. And if the label can supply a team of people who can help amplify that art, whether it's people who can help you with digital media, whether it's people that can help you with your profile on streaming platforms, whether it's people who can help you with your merchandising and your touring, whether it's people who can help you get your music on television, film in terms of synchronization, licensing. People can help you get on the radio. All these things are hard to do without help. And that's what a label, traditionally has offered. And in 2026, that's if you're an artist that you need those avenues to help amplify what you're doing, a label can help for sure.
Does it in any way scale down for the independent artist who doesn't have a label?
Every artist is going to have their own vision of what they want to accomplish. So it's not one size fits all. You're going to need to figure out what your individual unique goals are, bespoke to you. And then that will answer the question. The answer to that question will help you figure out who you need on your team.
Okay, fair enough. What's a major label practice that sounds expensive but is actually a mindset an indie artist could adopt tomorrow?
I think it's taking a megaphone out to the world and just letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and why you matter. And a label doesn't need to do that. The artists can do that themselves.
Is it fair to say a label's not going to do that anyway?
I mean, it really depends. Label's not the enemy. The label is an army behind your art. And the higher your aspirations are, the bigger your aspirations are for your art, the bigger you need the army to be.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I was thinking like, the common wisdom is that like, look, the label is not going to be terribly interested in you if you haven't done something like what you just said, taking a megaphone out to the world and done some broadcasting about what you do and showing that you know how to do that and are bringing something to them. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. I've learned from, decades of doing this that, you kind of throw conventional wisdom out the window. Nobody knows what's going to work. Nobody knows what's not going to work. So I think that a label, everyone thinks that a label's not going to be interested until they see a spark of something. The spark of something could be in your creativity. And there's still labels that say, I don't care if you have any followers, what you're doing is great. And even though we're starting from zero and going from 0 to 1 is sometimes the hardest thing to do, let's do it. Let's link arms and let's give it a shot.
I can see that. I was watching one of the songs that you're recognized for being associated with, I believe, from the publishing side, Ordinary. I'd never seen the artist before, but he struck me as like, I don't know if it's the case, but he struck me as people that I've seen in the passing where I thought that guy sounds so talented just as a singer that it seems like a label would do something exactly like what you just described.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, the artist Alex Warren came from a background as an influencer. So he understood how to use the internet, better than somebody, I'm a lot older than he is. So he's going to know that world. He's more digitally native than I am.
Mm-hmm.
What I can do for him And when I first met him, I'm like, I love your voice. Your voice is a viable voice. So our job is to surround you with the creative teammates that you need to put this voice in a commercially viable place. And that's what we did in terms of the digital marketing and the social media and stuff. He's light years ahead of me personally in terms of knowing how to connect on that level with his audience. And that's what made it a good combination.
I would guess he's ahead of a lot of people, even his peers, perhaps not all, but many, because of his background that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, he's digitally native in a way that I'm not.
Yeah. So I presume you still teach at Berklee, NYU, Wesleyan, and New Haven.
Not all at the same time, thank goodness.
Yeah, I was going to ask. But what's the most common misunderstanding about the music industry you have to correct every semester?
I think everyone feels like they've got the potential to be to make it, to be successful. And the sad truth is that 9 out of 10 are most likely not going to make it. And again, it depends how you are defining making it. But in my career, of all the artists that I've signed and I've worked with, if 2 out of 10, if 3 out of 10 became successful, to use a sports analogy in baseball, 3 out of 10 is still 300. 300 is a great batting average. You're in the conversation for the Hall of Fame with a 300 batting average, but that still means that 7 out of 10 times it's not working. Mm-hmm. So, if I sign 1,000 acts in my career, and 300 make it, which is a lot, 700 don't, which is even more. So that's the first thing that I need to tell the students when I teach, that this isn't as easy as it may appear. And you're more likely not to succeed than you are to succeed. Also, your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. The only opinion that matters is the audience. And the audience is undefeated. If they like something, they will listen to it over and over again. If they don't like something, they will skip it. So if you put music out and it doesn't connect, you can blame everybody else, but ultimately the audience has spoken, and we need to respect that ultimately it's the only opinion that matters in the realm of commercially viable pop music.
I would imagine that's deflating truth on day one or week one or whatever for a lot of people. Do you find some of them are not terribly surprised to hear that or seem unfazed?
I mean, some are unfazed. Youth is always unfazed. But I have what I try to do with the people that I mentor for the next generation of, creative people in the music business, A&Rs or producers, is songwriters, is look, it's not always going to work. You do the best you can. I've got scars from failing that my goal is to help you avoid having those scars, and let me teach you from when I got it wrong, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes.
For the artist who will never have an AR executive championing them, what does, or can you define what should A&Ring yourself actually looks like?
Again, it goes back not to not to repeat myself ad nauseum, but it goes back to what your goals are as an artist. If you want to be the biggest artist in the world, your goals are going to be different from somebody who just wants to be able to pay the rent. So A&Ring yourself means understanding who your audience is and making sure that your music is going to connect with that audience no matter how big or how small. So anyone can A&R. It's just a question of how you're defining the goalposts of what you're aiming for.
That sounds like good advice. If you had to give an independent artist one principle from your 35 years, sorry if I just dated you there, that they could act on this week or this month, this year, what would it be?
Elevate the bar of quality to make sure that your music is as good as it can be. Because in an era where there is no barrier to entry for distribution, you're competing against hundreds of thousands of songs daily that are being flooded into the marketplace. What is going to make your music stand out over all of that? There's a lot of noise. How are you going to rise up above the morass of noise? And that is a great way to A&R your song.
I assume you spent most of your career signing artists, or at least started there. I don't know how long the publishing has been going on, but I assume it came later. And wanted to ask, how did that shift change what you look for, if it did?
Well, how do you define A&R, right? If you're A&R, most people think that, oh, you're signing artists, that you're an A&R guy. A&R stands for artists and repertoire. So there are two parts of it. Repertoire is the song, is the songwriter, is the publishing, right? So the two complement each other. So I realized, maybe 10, 15, 20 years into doing this, that, hey, one complements the other. So if I find a great songwriter, I can sign a great songwriter for their songwriting work on the publishing side. And that could help me on the A&R side, because if they're a great songwriter, they could work on the projects that I have at the label with the artists that I'm signing. And those artists will get better songs, and the songwriter will get access to better placements. So it's, mutually beneficial.
Can I say you frightened me for a second when you asked the question that you intended to answer, but, well, how do you define A&R? Because I was thinking very quickly, oh shit, I can't define it really.
Right.
Yeah, but
I mean, A&R, for anyone who doesn't know, A&R stands for artists and repertoire. It's the combination, the coming together of the great artist and the great song. Sometimes the great artist is also a great songwriter, so they can write their own song. Sometimes the great artist is a great artist. Great songwriter is a great songwriter, and they're parallel. They don't connect, right? So Aretha Franklin, great voice. Otis Redding, great songwriter and great voice. You take Otis Redding's song Respect and you give it to Aretha Franklin, and that's A&R. Whitney Houston singing Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You, great song, great voice, that's A&R. Frank Sinatra, Strangers in the Night, boom, A&R.
For an independent artist, songwriter, what's the case for prioritizing publishing income versus recording income right now?
I think that if you're an independent artist, you're probably not going to make a lot of publishing income based on streaming. The publishing income is going to come more for getting your songs out there if a television show or a movie or a video game wants to sync it. So I would, if I'm an independent artist and it's day one, I would focus on my craft and my audience. That would probably lead me to play live shows and try to build my audience. The publishing would come later.
So one thing that I hear a lot from guys that are trying to help, people that are trying to help artists understand the sync world is relationships. You'd probably agree that does come, but it comes after what you just shared with me.
Relationships are 50% of everything. Showing up is 50% of everything. You could be super, super talented. You still need to go out there. There's always going to be the opportunity for somebody to show up. Somebody, let's say two people have the same opportunity. One person chooses to show up. The other person chooses to stay home. The person who shows up has a 50% more likely success rate. And I could tell you stories of the calls that come in at 1:32 in the morning. What do you mean you need me now? I'm sleeping, Yeah. And the person that shows up, it could change their life.
Yeah, I've heard some of these stories. One very recently from an artist who had a lot of success working with big names for a long career. And then I was thinking of someone who started out in the studio and who was who worked with Prince for a long time, and telling me stories along those very lines about getting calls in the middle of the night. So she had to go down there with her cohort and do the thing.
No one is going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. That means don't wait for permission. That means don't wait for anyone else to open the door for you. Sometimes you got to kick the door down. And if you kick the door down and people look at you like, what are you doing here? Get the hell out. Then go around back and break a window.
Yeah. Great. Last question for you. That's gone so fast. You're so succinct, but this has been very informative. What's something you've changed your mind about in music in the last couple of years?
I think the audience is always right thing just gets more and more clear to me daily. Um, you would think after doing this for decades, I would be able to know what they want, but that's the joy of this. Nobody ever knows what they want. I think that in the beginning, as a rookie, 20, 21-year-old A&R guy signing stuff and trying to put it out to the world, um, I realized that my opinion is less important than the audience's opinion, and that becomes clearer as time goes on for sure.
Have you seen that kind of bite some of your counterparts or peers in the rear, so to speak? Either?
Yeah, I think that digitally native A&R people, which is a euphemism for younger people, I think that they understand it better than older people do. I've seen it with older people where, going back decades, the minute that they make it about themselves and their taste, they're done.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the common wisdom trickling all the way down to the artist. What's something you've changed your mind about in the last 2 years that is outside of music?
I don't need to have an extra dessert.
That's a good one.
If I want to stay alive.
You have a sweet tooth, do you?
I'm trying, man. I'm out there in the gym every day. I'm trying to stay alive.
It's all we can do, man. We're all learning and trying. Well, is there anything you want to add for listeners of the podcast before I let you go? And by the way, thank you very, very much for spending the time with me.
No, of course. Thanks for the invitation. I think that anyone who's interested in music, contemporary music, why music works, like why people connect with great music and why the greats, are still people whose art we listen to over and over again to this day, they should check out the podcast. It's called Rock and Roll High School with Pete Ganbarg. And we're now in our 5th season, closing in on our 100th episode. And we've had everybody from, great artists like Shaka Khan and Todd Rundgren and who
a lot
else?
of people. I saw a lot of names on there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a big one today. I'm doing a really big one next week, and it's great. It's a lot of fun to go out there and talk to these artists and have them tell their stories, and songwriters and producers and executives, everybody from the great Gamble and Huff to the late great Lamont Dozier to the great Clive Davis. They've all been on the podcast, all telling their stories about their careers and lives, helping to create the history of contemporary music. So anyone who's interested, I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, that's cool. I'm excited for you. And I've been around a long time just as a performing musician doing things at a very local level. But anyway, I've been listening to music forever. And whenever I discover things like what I read about your podcast so far and what you just described, I learn a ton. So I can imagine the kids will learn a lot.
Here's hoping. It's free to listen to, kids.
Yep, I'll be sure to recommend it. Thanks again, Pete. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support the podcast. Follow The Unstarving Musician on your favorite podcast app, leave a review on your favorite podcast app, or shoot a review to me by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, or just share this episode with a friend. This all has a big impact on our audience growth. Visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. Click, tip, done. Easy and super appreciated. You'll find many other ways to support the podcast there, including through our affiliate partners, our online merch store, and more. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear, download, and or buy the full version with vocals by yours truly at robonzo.com. If that was all too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all this and the stuff I talked about in today's episode. You can leave feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.